trade deadline just about a month away. Is it time for the Celtics to be breaking up their duo of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, Mr.
I'm not going to say that it's time, but they should definitely consider it. They should definitely think about it, man. Look around the league, man. Look throughout NBA history. It's best that you trade them early rather than trading them too late. Jaylen Brown, you can probably actually get value for him. Hell, I'm not going to say trade Jason Tatum, but you can actually get value for him right now. Trade players while you can get value for them before it's too late and their value depreciates.
Bobon.
I've been sitting next to our dear friend Kendrick Perkins so frequently, and Perk has persuaded me, and it's just logic. It's simple logic, and it's from an ex-Celtic. Yeah, it's time to break them up. We saw them go to the conference.
And I agree with Michael Wilbon to an extent. I really do. I think the Celtics definitely need a point guard. They're in desperate need of a point guard because Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, they're very good isolation players. They're very good wing players. Jaylen Brown is an excellent defender, two-way player. But they need someone that can come up the floor and establish and set up the offense. Chris Paul would be great on this team. They really need a true point guard, man. Like Chris Paul, Damian Lillard, something like that. I don't want to say Damian Lillard, even though I think he would help this team. But they need a point guard, someone that can initiate the offense and get things going in the half court, man.
Finals, 3 times in 4 years, and we thought they were on the cusp. One of those games they actually should have won early on, may have been Tatum's rookie year. They should have won. And now we're at the point where they're not even a factor. Conference finals, I mean, they're a threat to not make the playoffs. How much backsliding can the Celtics afford to do before management says, okay, that's it. This is not working.
Yeah, man, they need to go ahead and consider trading one of these players, man. They may even want to trade both of these players. Honestly, you may want to consider that, man. You know, the Boston Celtics, the worst thing that happened to them a few years ago was when Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward got injured and they went to the conference finals. That gassed up all of these young guys' heads, man, and they thought they were better than they were. At the end of the day, yeah, y'all made it to the conference finals, but y'all did not make it to the NBA finals. In the bubble tournament, they made it to the conference finals again, and they got beat by the Miami Heat. In the bubble tournament, they who's one of the teams they beat was Toronto to get there. I mean, they were obviously better than Toronto. It's calling it what it is, man. This is a better Eastern Conference. You have Milwaukee. You have a superstar in Giannis. You have the Brooklyn Nets, superstar KD. These things we have to understand. The Bulls are rising up and coming up. You got a lot of teams, man, getting better. You have teams like the Cavs getting better. Joel Embiid is still performing at a high level for the 76ers, man. Yo, Boston is really not even a top 5 team in the conference at this point, man. And they have Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, who you can argue on paper you would say to yourself, these are 2 top 20 players in the league. So these are things we have to understand. Unless they can get a good point guard that's going to come up to court and initiate the offense, really Ben Simmons would be perfect for this team. But obviously if they're going to get Ben Simmons, they would have to give up Jaylen Brown and in all likelihood, honestly, probably Jason Tatum. So that's not going to happen. But, you know, that's something they need to consider.
Again, Perk has convinced me it's not working. Make a deal. The problem, though, is, and Jalen, we've heard him say this, they're not going to trade Jason Tatum. They just don't. That just doesn't seem to be the direction ownership wants to go.
I can understand that because Jason Tatum has superstar potential. He has superstar potential, but look at his counterparts. I'm looking at Trae Young. I'm looking at Luka Doncic. I'm looking at Devin Booker. I'm looking at Ja Morant. I'm looking at Donovan Mitchell. These are all the players in Jason Tatum's generation, and I think I would take all these players over Jason Tatum. I think Jason Tatum, may have a promising future, a bright future, but we have to start asking ourselves, moving forward, is he going to be competing with these other players in his generation? You can say that Giannis, to an extent, is a part of his generation. Obviously, Giannis is a little bit older, but look at some of these guys, man. Is he going to be able to compete with the guys in his generation? LaMelo Ball is coming up. I think LaMelo Ball may pass Jason Tatum. I think he's a better leader than Jason Tatum, a better passer than Jason Tatum, a better teammate than Jason Tatum. These things we got to start understanding, start understanding and start figuring out moving forward, especially if you're the Boston Celtics fan, man. Just call it.
If you trade Jaylen Brown, what are you going to get in return?
And that's the big question, Jalen.
The Celtics have seen 17 championships and probably more Hall of Famers than any team in the league other than the Lakers. Don't panic.
I'm not going to use the word panic, man, but you have to be practical and you have to really take the time to analyze things and assess the situation. What they need desperately is a point guard and an elite level point guard, really, that can come up the court, initiate the offense, in a half court set. That's the problem, man. You have Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. They're really good half court players that can get their own shot, create their own shot, but can they create shots for others? Can they create plays for others? The answer to that question is no.
You don't break up Tatum and Brown. You don't break up Tatum and Brown. It's a perimeter-driven league. They can both dribble, pass, and shoot. You know what you do for them? Get them a guard that can make the game easier.
I agree 100%. I agree 100%, Jalen Rose. I did not know you were going to say that. I agree 100%. You just took the word straight out of my mouth.
Exact same thing people were saying about Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. The exact same thing. Can they coexist? You know what's tough for those two guys? At the end of the game when one of them.
The difference between Kawhi Leonard and Paul George and Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum is that Kawhi Leonard has proven that he can win a championship. He's proven that he can lead a team to a championship. He can put a team on his back and lead them to the championship.
Got to play power forward against a guy that's 40 pounds bigger than him. Or when Jason Tatum got to initiate the offense when he on the floor with Schroeder and Marcus Smart. That's what you do. You be patient and you find a way to build around those guys, not break them up.
Yeah, and you want someone.
You want to find a way to build around these guys, man. But it's going to be hard for you to find an elite level point guard in the draft. It really is. I mean, maybe they may be able to build through free agency and stuff like that, but how many guys are looking to come to Boston in free agency? Just calling it what it is, man. They may want to consider it, man. They may want to be considered because I can understand if the Celtics were like the 4th or 5th seed, but they're probably not even going to make the playoffs this year. That's the way it's looking.
That can make their lives easier, like you said, but you had Kyrie, and then you have Dennis Schroeder, and sometimes you look and you're like, is this going to work? I think the interesting part was Coach Ime Udoka questioned the team's mental toughness. And I think there's something you have to separate when it comes to mental toughness. Individually, I think those guys are dogs, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, and their trajectory, with the...
They both have very high usage rates, very high usage rates. Both of them combined are averaging more than 60% of the offense's usage, man. That means every time down the court, all the plays are going through them. This is the usage rate of someone that you would think would be a point guard, man. That tells me they are initiating the offense entirely too much. The ball is in their hands entirely too much. And neither one of these players, I'll bet money on it, have more than 5 assists. I don't think either one of these players have 4 assists a game. It's calling it what it is, man. They have the ball in their hands the vast majority of the time, the vast majority of the possessions coming down the court, and most of them are not. Neither one of these guys are really playmakers. They're really good scorers, really good defenders, but once again, they need a point guard, man. And Kemba Walker, man, they thought he was going to be that guy, but he's not. He wasn't.
Development has been astronomical. But as a unit, that's when you start questioning, as a unit, is the mental toughness there? You've had flares of incidents with Marcus Smart, and you're trying to figure out that identity. And I think the only validity that I can see through Perk and your idea of splitting them up potentially is that when you're a star entering the league, you kind of want to see what you can do on your own before you're tag team with somebody. And that developmental aspect of okay, I went and won an MVP.
That's one of the reasons why when LeBron came back to Cleveland, what he did was he traded Andrew Wiggins and brought in Kevin Love because he knows the young niggas, what they want to do is come in, get their numbers, establish themselves in the league. And older players, they already are established. They're veterans. They already kind of know where their place is in the league. They already know their role. They know who they are. And that's the problem with a lot of young guys. That's the reason why a lot of them don't win championships early on in their career because they don't know who they are yet. They don't know what type of player they are yet. They don't know who they are. That's the best young players, the best players in NBA history are the ones that come into the league and know who they are. For example, look at Magic Johnson, knew who he was from the moment he stepped in. Look at Larry Bird, knew who he was from the day he stepped in. Even to a lesser degree, Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell's first year with the Utah Jazz, that whole team, they galvanized around him, and he was the leader of that team in his rookie season and led them to a first-round victory over the Oklahoma City Thunder that year. Knowing who you are, man. I think Kevin Durant is at that sweet spot in his career where he knows who he is, and that's why he's having some of his best seasons now. Be who you are. And a lot of these young dudes, they don't know who they are. I don't think Jason Tatum knows who he is yet. I don't think Jaylen Brown knows who he is yet. Self-awareness is key in life, brothers, for all of us, man. It's good and best that we know who we are. In a few years, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown will look and evaluate their careers and evaluate themselves and say, you know what? I don't think I'm the number one guy on the championship team. I think I need a better player. Or I'm a really good scorer and a really good defender, but I need a playmaker to help initiate the offense because that's something I'm not that good at. You know, in a couple years, they'll find out. But I don't know if the Celtics will have that type of time.
PR. I'm a 5-time All-Star. Now I need to focus on a championship. It's hard to do that on the same timeline when you're both under 25.
Well, one of the discussions that we had earlier on NBA Today, Jalen, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, is just the fact of potentially playing a little bit less selfish, giving up the ball, not taking these isolation shots that we're seeing.
Some guys just aren't like that. Some guys just aren't passers, man. Some guys are scorers. They have a scorer's mentality. And if you try to make them more of a passer, what that's going to do is make them a worse player. You know, Greg Popovich said it best. He told LaMarcus Aldridge a few years back. He said, yo, I was overcoaching him. I just need to let him play. Look at DeMar DeRozan, man. When he was playing for the San Antonio Spurs, man, we thought DeMar DeRozan was trash. He was having these average seasons. Now look at him for Chicago. He's able to go out there and focus on scoring because that's what he's asked to do for that team. He's a scorer. He goes out there and scores. Let Lonzo Ball dish the ball and find all the assists and find open teammates and things of that nature. I'm going to score. And that's what's making him have such an all-star, damn near MVP caliber season.
Is it about shot selection? Is it about chemistry? What do you think?
It's about somebody making the game easier for him. When the last time you watched the Celtics?
I agree. Most people aren't watching the Celtics play. But you don't even really have to watch them play to even tell and see that that's the problem with these dudes, man. Jason Tatum is shooting 42% from the field. Jaylen Brown, 46% from the field. He has a pretty good field goal percentage. But Jason Tatum, you're taking entirely too many shots. Your usage rate is very high, and you're making barely 42% of your shots, man. You're not even making half your shots. You're damn near making 40% of your shots. That means pretty much 60% of the time down the floor, you're missing. You're taking shots away from your other teammates. You're taking shots really away from Jaylen Brown, too, to an extent, because based on esteem, you're viewed as the better player. They're both averaging mid-20s, but once again, they're not winning. Why is that? Like Jalen Rose just said, they need someone that can initiate the offense. And that was Kyrie Irving. That really was, man. They ran Kyrie Irving off. Like I said, man, the worst thing that happened to this team was them going to the conference finals that year, man. It made them think they were better than they were. If they would have kept Kyrie Irving, they probably would be a championship contender right now, man.
Game, and there's a 3-on-2 break, and both of those guys were on the wing, and somebody had a choice to drop it off to them for a layup or a dunk. They have to create.
And something we got to understand about Kyrie Irving is Kyrie Irving is not really that good of a playmaker either. He is very he likes to dribble a lot, man. That's one of Kyrie Irving's problems. He loves to dribble. So he has to play with guys, man, that can accept that, man. And I don't think once again, these young guys, they're not going to be accepting of that because they're trying to find their place in the league. Especially a few years ago, they definitely were still trying to find their place in the league. A couple years from now, I think Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they'll have a better understanding of who they are in the league and they'll be better players. But still, they're going to need that point guard.
Offense, they have to score, be efficient, and when they're not efficient, they lose.
They're not efficient. Look at his averages. What you mean when they're not efficient? They're never efficient. 42% from the field, man. Jason Tatum, that's terrible. That's not to mention the 30% from the field games, those 3 of 19 games, those 8 for 24 games. That's what you're doing. You have a lot of those outputs. You may have a couple of, 18 for 25 games throughout the season, but for the most part, you're missing more shots than you're making, man. You taking way too many shots.
And let me just say something else about the Celtics. While we're talking about those two guys, if you really look at their roster, the teams in the East are better than them.
They are better than them. Like I said, the Cavs are better than them. The Bucks are better than them. The Phillies and the Philadelphia 76ers, the Heat, the Raptors, the Hornets, man. There's so many the Hawks, I would take them over them, man. They're better. They're better, man, and they really shouldn't be, man, because when you look at this duo and you look at their potential, you say to yourself, man, they should be better. They shouldn't be 3 games under 500, but they are.
That's their problem. They ain't better than the Nets, Milwaukee, the Bucks. They're just not better than those teams.
So the question
and that's what
would
we're
be,
seeing.
And Jalen makes a great point. I even amend. I'm going to speak for Perk for a second. I would amend his point to this degree. If you are going to keep them together and try to find a way, you better get a point guard. How many teams are there out there, Jalen, where they're missing? You look, when Chris Paul comes to town.
Yes, and I did not watch this segment before I did this video. I did not. They need like a point guard like Chris Paul. Chris Paul would be excellent for this team. Excellent. A point guard like that, man. And there's very few point guards out there like Chris Paul. You know, very few. Very high basketball IQ. He would definitely help this team. This team would instantly become a conference finals contender. I wouldn't consider them an NBA finals contender, not in the East over Milwaukee and the Nets, but they would definitely be right up there.
What happens? I know there's only one Chris Paul, but they better find the next best solution if they're going to keep those guys together to have a.
Hey, man, I'm not really a fan of Russell Westbrook that much, man, but I think Russell Westbrook actually would fit particularly well on the Boston Celtics. I honestly do, man. I really do, man. He probably would, because he would definitely help Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. I don't think that his IQ is that high and he's the best teammate to have necessarily, but I definitely think he would help them.
Point guard is Marcus Smart isn't that guy. You still want him on the floor. You still have to figure out a way to incorporate him.
Yeah, you could definitely package Marcus Smart and Dennis Schroeder, whatever his name is, and you can package him to the Lakers. And I'm pretty sure the Lakers would take that trade. I think they would. I think they would accept it.
But they don't have that lead guard, a guy to organize the team, particularly late in games.
And you know what else the lead guard does?
What?
Lead.
Oh, yeah. And sometimes the idea is.
Yes, lead. And that all goes back to knowing who you are in the league and knowing who you are in life. On certain teams, like the high school teams and college teams, they may have been the leader. But in the NBA, it's a different league. It's a different mindset. These are grown-ass men. It's harder to lead in the NBA than it is to lead on any other level. You know, in a couple of years, these guys will know who they are. Simple. And we'll find out. Maybe Jaylen Brown might even pass up Jason Tatum.
You have to protect the athlete from themselves. Protect the athlete from themselves. When this guy can't make the right decision, this guy can't make the right. Find someone that can figure that out for them both.
Well, and I don't buy this idea of needing to like each other and be best friends to make it work on the floor. I'm thinking Rudy Gobert, to quote Kendrick Perkins, and Donovan Mitchell. Right? We're seeing that be able to work out that chemistry.
Yeah.
So I don't buy that that's going to be.
It's not really much chemistry to be worked out there. I mean, Rudy Gobert is a defender. He's not really a shooter. He's not stepping on anyone's toes. He gets rebounds, and he defends really well. One of the best defenders in the league. Definitely a great rim protector. And in the paint, he can go down there and bang with any of the boys. But it's not really much chemistry that needs to be had there.
The issue here, they're just going to have to figure out if it's another player to put with them to make them work, or is someone going to have to slightly alter their game there.
They need a point guard. But that's the end of that.